Thank you very much. And we are really excited to do this training today. We last did a training for First Five in person a couple of years ago. This is our first time doing it on Zoom, and we know how much we all love Zoom. We want to make it as much of a dynamic presentation as possible, and asking that if you have any questions to put them in the chat. You can raise your hand using Zoom, and we will be monitoring the chat as we are going through our presentation so that we can respond to your questions there. My name is Valerie. I am just part of the team. Most of this training you'll be hearing from Rebecca, but we are a team of people that are doing this training, and some of us are going to be doing the breakout rooms. All of us have been involved with this training, so I'd like to introduce everyone. And when I call your name, please just say good morning, so that there's the spotlight and people can see you. I purposely didn't even use my last name, just use your first name. And so first with Rebecca.
Good morning, everyone.
Janine.
Morning, everyone.
Demisha.
Good morning, everyone.
Tariana.
Good morning.
Lola.
Okay, good morning.
Tequila.
Good morning, everyone.
Rinaldi.
Good morning, everyone.
Annabelle.
Good morning, everyone.
Michael.
Good morning, good morning, good morning.
I knew we were going to get more. Shirley.
Good morning, everyone.
Lee. Oh, here's Lee. I'm sorry.
Good morning, everybody.
Champ.
Hi.
Yolanda. Yolanda here. Rebecca. Sabrina.
Good morning.
Ricardo.
Good morning, everyone.
Vicky.
Good morning, everyone.
Arthur.
Good morning.
Martha.
Good morning, everybody.
Orlando.
Good morning, everyone.
Is there anyone I missed? So that's a pretty large, it's a pretty large team. Rebecca, if you can put up the slides. So in terms of what we're doing this morning, as you would expect, it's increasing your knowledge of government benefit programs. And you know they've changed a whole lot in the last couple of years of COVID. And that's been one of the work that we've been doing, led by Rebecca, in terms of making sure that we understand what the changes are and the benefits that are available to people. So that's a key part. You see this in red, and you will see in all the slides that we go through, all the slides that we go through, that COVID will be highlighted in red. We will be identifying eligibility criteria, key steps of the application process. We will talk about the common public benefit issues, and then we will build skills and knowledge for partnering with the consumers and public benefits. Rebecca, can you pull the slides down again? And we go back to another, if you can take the slides down, take them off for a second. I'm sorry. And because I did forget someone, I can't believe, bigger than life, we have a special guest presenter that is a really important part of every one of our trainings, Sheila Snowden, who heads up the Victims of Crime Unit for Alameda County, the lead supervisor. If Sheila, if you could say hello, and I apologize, Sheila, that I did not give an opportunity for you to say hello. Okay, so Sheila, we're gonna just say that you said hello, but I do wanna say one of the real drawbacks of being in Zoom is that every time we do the presentation, there is after Sheila speaks, there's a long line of people lined up to talk to Sheila. And she never gets a break, she never gets to lunch because there's all these people waiting to talk to her. Make sure that, your questions for Sheila are added into the chat. And I'm glad we were able to come back to this so that we, have this little sound check going right now. We'll go back to the screen. Thank you. We're going to talk about why it's important. It seems obvious that public benefits are important, but there's actually some aspects to it that we may not be thinking of. Why it's difficult to apply, what the challenges are to that, and giving an overview of the benefits that are administered by the county. If you can go to the next slide. We will do an overview of state employment, and there's a lot that's under the pandemic that we will be covering. And then also the consequences of, having to do things electronically now in person and how it affects things like state disability, paid family leave. And we'll do an overview of the what's covered by the Social Security Administration. That's the SSI, all of those aspects. This is why when you have there's somebody else controlling my slides and she's keeping me on time. So when we have a culturally affirmative approach to our work, and what we mean by that is really focusing more on what the relationships are, that when you think about social determinants, when people are describing what, okay, we can hear you now, Sheila. What drives, yeah, we can now. So what drives, so if you can put it on mute right now. Thank you. So what drives the our health is much more around our relationships and our behaviors. But where we've been focused in terms of the way we deliver work is on those first two peers in terms of psychological needs, safety, and security, a much more transactional approach. But most of what makes a difference in our wellness is the aspects in terms of love and belonging. So when we talk about culturally affirmative, we're speaking about attending to the circumstances, attending to the strengths of people, what they want, how they're functioning over labels like diagnosis. What difference does it make to their life day to day? We attend to, most of us, including our clients and programs, solve our own problems. What has worked and when? Well, what have they tried? What are and partnering around those things. But one of the key things is understanding their support network, who they care about and who cares about them. That if we don't attend to that aspect of a person's life, they are going, they have very little use for what our consultation is, what our information or education, and certainly not interested in us telling them what to do. You can go to next slide. So we need people to care because of so many people who are at the poverty level, no different in Alameda County, 15%, that there is, with the changes in the last couple of years, the issues around unemployment, things have been even more volatile. And that there are a lot of different kinds of benefits like Medi-Cal and others that when you're eligible for that, that opens up a whole new level of benefits. So one benefit can lead to many other benefits. So something that it can have a lot more significance than we think. Next slide. Now the difficulty, certainly in terms of people who are residents that are part of the undocumented population, that makes it much more difficult in terms of securing benefits or knowing what benefits are available to connect up with, not only for the residents, but for the people who are supposed to be helping them with that. That the degree in which people land into correctional facilities, often just long enough to lose their benefits and need to be able to reestablish them. That there is not clarity around how do you apply and what the requirements are Of course, they change a lot. That's why this training is so important, that we're working on having this training is like what to do, what to ask, what's the next step in order to be able to take care of that. And the lack of communication and coordination, that's only gotten worse with COVID. What place is open? How do you apply? What, does the website even work, let alone you having the bandwidth literally to be able to use it. Next slide. So I want to ask this question. Do we have the Zoom, or Rebecca, or do people, do we have the poll?
Yep, we have a poll. Thank you.
Okay, so we want to ask, in terms of the scale, how of using this scale of 1 to 5, how comfortable are you with navigating public benefits? So if you could just respond in terms of the scale that's put up for you.
And I think you should be able to see it.
Okay, and yes, I can. And so, and hopefully other people can too. The most popular answer was somewhat uncomfortable, 30%. Between that and very uncomfortable, it's about half of us that feel pretty not comfortable with it, and about a quarter of us and 6% feeling very comfortable. My number one expert in this is Rebecca, and what her level of comfort with things. I know for myself that I never feel particularly comfortable because things are changing all the time, unless I am in that position. And I know Andrea Ford, the Associate Director for Social Services, says it takes 18 months to train an eligibility worker so that they know the training, know the information really well.
We tend to live around 3.5 is where I tend to live, just exactly for why you said, Valerie, the constant changes in the laws and the eligibility criteria.
Yeah, it makes it very challenging. So what we're going to cover today, you see on the left side with the blue, Calworks, General Assistance, CalFresh, Medi-Cal, Victims of Crime, which was Sheila, which is a really important information. We're not going to be covering, but it's important for you to be aware of refugee cash assistance programs for immigrants, and in-home support services, which is also really, really key. So what I'd like to do now is introduce Jaquela, who is going to give a description of Calworks.
Good morning, everyone. How's everybody doing?
Good morning.
I'll be presenting the Calworks benefits. Next slide, please. California Work Opportunity and Responsibility Kids Program, also known as Calworks. Calworks is known federally as a temporary aid for needy families, also known as TANF. Calworks is a temporary cash assistance program for families that have children under 18 years old to meet basic family needs. Calworks is an employment-based program that requires employable adults to participate in work or school-related core or non-core activities to receive aid. Exempt household members are family members who receive SSI, IHSS, SDI, workers' comp, under 19 and still in school, over 60, disabled at least 30 days, pregnant and unable to work, or if you have a baby under 1 year old. Next slide, please. Calworks provides 48 months of cash assistance and up to 24 months of welfare to work services for families with children. This is a lifetime limit for adult members. So if you have a client who has only used 6 months of their time, they still have a remaining time, whether they take it that year or the next year. Calworks is a program for children that can continue to receive the assistance for up to 18 years old, or 18 years old and still enrolled in school, high school, or vocational school, and expected to graduate by 19. Calworks offers a domestic violence program to help survivors of interpersonal violence. Calworks also has another program called CalLearn to help Calworks pregnant and parenting teens graduate from high school, or its equivalent. In the red, you'll see the changes made by Governor Newsom effective on March 17, 2020, that went through to June 17, 2020. Next slide, please. With Calworks, you can ask for immediate assistance, ask for homeless and housing assistance, indicate non-reoccurring special needs, and indicate special needs. Calworks welfare to work requirements are one-parent families with children under 6 years old to participate in the program 20 hours a week, one-parent family with no children under 6 years old 30 hours, and two-parent families at least 35 hours a week. Calworks welfare to work supportive services are child care, transportation, work or training related expenses, adult learning, book supplies and extended transportation, personal and career counseling, behavioral health screenings and referrals, learning disability screenings and referrals, welfare to work evaluation, and healthy lifestyle classes. To apply for Calworks, you must provide proof of citizenship, must have legal status, citizen or qualified immigrant, meaning legal permanent resident, refugee, asylee, a U visa pending, T visa pending, and a VAWA pending, also known as Violence Against Women Act. You need to have an identification card. If you do not have an identification card, you can complete a PA 853, which is an affidavit, and swear that you are the person you say you are. You can provide a Social Security card or number or proof of application for the card provided by Social Security Administration, proof of income, which can be a check stub, W-2, copy of tax return, or a sworn statement, proof of residence that you live in Alameda County, proof of property, being bank statements, vehicle registration and payment, work or school status, verification of age-appropriate immunizations for any child in the household under 6, and proof of enrollment in school for all school-age children 19 years or older in the household. The grant levels for Calworks are set by the state, and amounts vary according to household size at the time of application, also known as assistant unit. Household members who may not be considered in your aid are people who receive SSI, people who do not meet legal status requirements, foster children receiving foster care payments, and sponsored immigrants whose needs are being met by a sponsor or sanctioned person. Calworks exempt and non-exempt status is, excuse me, if you meet one of the following criteria, you are considered exempt from doing welfare to work. Disabled for at least 30 days, under 16, under 19 and in school full-time, over 60, caring for a baby under 1, pregnant and medically unable to participate in work activities, or caring for a sick or disabled household member. If any of the adults in the family member, in the household are exempt, you will receive a higher benefit amount. Next slide, please. Other requirements, other things to be considered in your amount is the age, income, resources, assets, in the geographic area. Calworks has two regions. Region 1 is the top and Region 2 at the bottom. If you have a client that goes to a different, so if you have a client that moves from Region 1 to 2, their amount can either increase or decrease regarding on the counties that they move to. Next slide, please. And here is the graphic showing the family size and the amounts for maximum aid for non-exempt families and the maximum aid for exempt families. And if you can see that it's not much of a difference. However, this is a employable program, so we do encourage our clients to still try to work and receive aid as well. Next slide, please. Calworks benefits are provided monthly on an electronic benefit card, also known as EBT card. There is a semi-annual, also known as SAR-7, and an annual renewal required. And here are in the red are the changes made by Governor Newsom that were effective, that executed March 17th and resumed in June 2020. Next slide, please. And now we're going to pass it to my team member, Rebecca. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Jaquela. Now we're going to talk about general assistance. General assistance is established by our County Board of Supervisors. They actually fund the GA program for legal residents of the county. General assistance is cash aid to what they call indigent adults, married couples, and emancipated minors who have no other means of support. Counties determine the personal property limits and the maximum monthly cash grant amount, and this amount will differ between counties. So as we know, people are moving throughout the state, especially with the pandemic. It's important to inform your clients that if they're on GA in Alameda County and they move to Solano County, their GA grant may go down or go up. In Alameda County, our GA maximum benefit amount is $336 a month for an individual and $548 a month for a couple. And it has been that amount for several years now. General assistance is considered a loan to the individual receiving the aid. Employable recipients must participate in employment service activity. GA is limited to 3 months of aid within a 12-month period. You can get an extension with an MD certification for either a physical disability or a mental disability. There's an additional form that you can ask for. When you apply for GA, you must show and or apply for all other unconditional available income benefits such as unemployment insurance benefits, state disability insurance, and Social Security. Here in red, you will see that during the shelter in place, there was an extension that was allowed for people to prove that they actually did have a temporary permanent disability. In order to apply for general assistance, you must provide identification. You must provide proof of citizenship or that you are a legal permanent resident. You must be a resident of this county for at least 15 days prior to the application. You must be unemployed. You must possess less than $1,000 in personal property. You will be asked to sign a reimbursement agreement because general assistance is a loan. And you must apply for SSI or CAPI, Cash Assistance Program for Immigrants, if you are disabled and or if you're 65 years or older. GA, like Calworks, is provided monthly. It is loaded onto your EBT card. When you apply for GA, the application will include Medi-Cal and CalFresh. And I have an application here, which I was going to show you all, which we can come back to. And you can see that during the shelter in place, redeterminations were suspended for 90 days. I'm going to go ahead and pass it back to Jaquela, who will go over CalFresh.
Rebecca, before going back, if you could answer a couple of questions that came in the chat about if you could give a description of what you mean by exempt. And would you say the main difference between GA and Calworks is that GA is a loan and Calworks is not a loan? But then there's a question.
One at a time. Is that okay?
Yes.
The main difference between Calworks and GA is that with Calworks, you have children in the household. With general assistance, it's for adults only. In terms of exempt and non-exempt, Calworks is an employment-based program. So the exemption is for people that do not have to participate in what they call core work activities. So exempt households get a little bit more also in their grant level. Jaquela, did you want to add anything there?
Yes, and those exempt family members that don't have to participate, again, are disabled household members, people who receive SSI, and people who are pregnant and unable to work.
Mm-hmm. There are a lot of myths around Calworks that people will have to pay it back, that your children will inherit the debt of what was given to you as a benefit. And those are community myths. That one of the reasons why we really want to give this training, even though it's so cumbersome, is that we want to dispel those myths. In the back of the Calworks application, there's about 50 pages of paper. Can you show it, Jaquela? Which is all information. Jaquela's holding up the Calworks application, and you will see that half of the application is just information for you to read, and I would recommend that you actually read it.
So it's literally only about 3 or 4 pages to fill out to complete the CalFresh packet, and like Rebecca said, everything else is information.
The Calworks. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Other questions, Valerie?
I just wanted to add in terms of, there's the question around the GA I think a lot of people are surprised that it is a loan.
It is a loan.
And I'm not clear about this part, Rebecca, so if you can clarify it. I believe that the loan, they ask for it back when you're applying for SSI, but if you move on to a private job in the private workforce, they don't find you. They only find you when you're making that very little SSI money. And then another question is around how long does it do you get to pay it back, how it's paid back?
You know, that's exactly right. When you apply for general assistance, because you must also apply for any other benefit that you may be eligible for, many people, when they're applying for SSI, and we'll get to this later on in the presentation, should and could apply for general assistance, food stamps, and Medi-Cal first while they're waiting for their SSI. If you are granted your SSI, the county will deduct from your retroactive first payment the amount that you were paid in general assistance. If you do not receive SSI, ultimately, the county can pursue it because it is a loan, but I haven't heard of them doing that.
Yeah,
But as far as I know.
and
I'm sorry, go ahead.
go ahead, Jaquela.
No, I was just going to add that without receiving SSI, with that affidavit, you just swearing to, I think, take up to like 2 years to pay it back.
I see in the chat, there's also a question, is there a max of GA received in a lifetime? With a medical exemption, which includes mental health, you can receive GA up to 36 months.
And the counties are invested in people getting off of GA and onto SSI, because GA is coming from the county, SSI is coming from the state and the federal government. So there's a lot of different programs that the county has to help people get onto SSI for that reason. And anyone who may need a lifetime is most likely going to qualify under SSI in some way.
And may I also add, Ms. Valerie, that GA, I see in the chat it says, is there a max of GA received in a lifetime? You can reapply a year from the date you first applied if you need it in the next year.
If you don't have a medical extension.
Yes.
And I see there's a question about moms that give birth having to participate in Calworks orientation immediately. Do you want to answer that?
They're given time to start. They get an exception with the paperwork from the hospital. Would you like to add to that, Rebecca?
I think that's perfect. We know there's a lot of questions. We have a lot more information, so please keep your questions in the chat. At the end of each benefit, we will also take questions. So thank you for making this such an interesting training. Let me go back to CalFresh and Jaquela.
Yes, so we're about to watch a quick video and we're going to put everybody into breakout rooms for about 10 minutes. So don't forget to ask questions in the chat and then bring them back we'll come back to present the rest of the CalFresh slides.
$44. $20, $30. See, that's $38.40.
You don't have enough money?
I don't have any checks. Well, I guess I'll have to put some things back.
Can I have the register key? She doesn't have enough money.
It's not such a big thing. I brought the wrong purse. Here, take this.
$43.75. $41.35.
Mom, you promised I could have something. I'm not going to give her real food, all right?
Why don't you give her this?
No way.
$40.35. Mom!
All right. Here.
$40.55. $40.75. Hey, we're going in the wrong direction.
Why do you have to be so goddamn nasty? I mean, it's not going to help anything.
We're both people, you know? $40.75.
I don't need it.
Mrs. Horton? I'm Sam Burns from the bank. I turned you down on the second on your house.
Oh, of course. I remember who you are.
Look, can I help you make up the difference here?
Thanks. I'd appreciate it. I'll pay you back tomorrow.
You're a very rude young woman. I know Douglas from the Rotary, and I can't believe he'd want you treating customers so badly.
I don't think I was treating her badly.
Then you must be from New York.
Okay, we're going to move into our first breakout rooms.
Just about everybody is back now. And so wanted to take a couple of minutes to get, you know, the wisdom that came up in the breakout rooms to bring it forward. I see in the chat that maybe Amy can start it off, and anybody who wants to speak on, you know, what was a particular highlight or an aha that they had either in the video or in the breakout. So Amy, can you start us off?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, our group thought that the two definite ones she could apply for, the mother could apply for, would be CalFresh and Calworks. And then we thought there's some possibility she could even possibly apply for child support. There may have been a partner that was involved and is no longer involved because, you know, there was that talk about the person from the bank, you know, that was denied her loan. So definitely something happened, you know, possibly maybe the partner died and she could apply for survivor benefits for her child. Someone said she also may have lost a job, so maybe she could apply for unemployment. So these are all things she could apply for. But we also spent a good amount of time just talking about the clerk, the person that worked in the store, on how she needed some compassion training, some training on you know, good people skill training. And then someone also brought up that maybe she herself has went through something like that. And she, instead of being compassionate, somehow she's like pulled herself up from her bootstraps and felt, oh, I could do it. She could do it. I don't know. We thought about a lot of different things, but
Yeah,
mostly we thought she needed that she was pretty rude and she needed a lot of training. And someone also said they would probably have asked for the supervisor.
Yeah. Yeah, so it sounds like you covered a lot in terms of all the different, you know, imagination and being curious about what the person's life is, what benefits would be entitled to as a result of that, as well as, you know, cashier doesn't make a whole lot in terms of bank and how much we are, you know, we're in a similar position ourselves, the people that are there to help. Champ, do you have something you want to add?
Yes. Yeah, in my breakout room, we discussed some of the similar things that Amy just spoke of. First dealing with her had not have enough money. Some answers was like some people felt that maybe because she was already dealing with embarrassment, you know, maybe they'll wait till she get out the store or when she's finished, you know, give her some contacts to, you know, some resources as far as a food bank or where to get some things that to help her. Also, another suggestion was, you know, maybe that she really did leave her purse there, you know, and it was just a real mix-up. So instead of stereotyping her, you know, and thinking the worst, you know, just was giving her the benefit of the doubt that, you know, maybe that she really did leave her purse there and she really just forgot, you know, but really just getting to the root of the problem. Also, with the cashier, some felt maybe the lady could have been numb to her pain because she's going through pain as being a grocer, not making that much money, you know, and so she's going to be lacking empathy and compassion because she probably need compassion and empathy as well because of what she's going through. So she's going to be numb to her, you know, pain because of the situation that she's facing. So, you know, yeah, so pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, those are really good points. I really appreciate the part where you're saying, you know, the food bank is that we have all these benefits to think about. It's still going to take time, even if they come through right away and you're hungry. And so, you know, like what to do right now. And I do appreciate you thinking she had another purse. When I heard it was like, what other purse? But anyway, but if that appreciation for people is really important. Vicki, did you have anything you wanted to add? I think we have just a couple of more minutes.
Sure. Basically, everybody's covered almost all the things we talked about, but we really focused on what we could do for her immediately, like the food bank or, you know, food for families. Is her children getting in the reduced lunch program? Can she go to her church? Because churches offer a lot. And even there are community clinics that have food for families. So we thought about a lot of the immediate things that she could get right now because, you know, CalFresh, Calworks, that's all great, but that's going to take time. We were trying to think about things that she could have today, something that would help her right now.
Yes, in action oriented. Let's get it organized. Good points. Any other comments in terms?
Yes, please, we have a couple in the chat. You were going down by the chat and then it went to hands. So we have a few in the chat, Lola's in the chat. And then my director said 1 minute. He said, report back 1 minute. And Diane, she was in my team. 1 minute. You would like to share?
Thanks, Mike. Diana here from Oakland Housing Authority. I think most of the items that have been expressed is what we talked about. I think the only other thing that was brought up in our group was a couple of us thought it was odd that the way that the kids reacted differently. I think it was Mike that you said your mom would have hit you as a kid, and I shook my head because that's how I grew up. So even if that would have happened, the clerk shouldn't have balked. I mean, everyone's different. We have all different cultural nuances, but it's really interesting to see that one kid was more compassionate than the other. So we don't know if what's really going on. Is it true poverty and the mom has expressed it and one kid cares and the other doesn't? And the only other thing that wasn't highlighted was we felt that it was really nice that the banker pitched in to help, and it really showed that there's compassion out there. Even though it was interesting that he said, I think he said, I'm the one that denied your loan. That shouldn't have been said out loud, but it was nice that he did pay for it. So he paid it forward, which is helpful. We're a community.
Yeah, and so it really highlights the effects of community and the positive, like the man and the cashier as the negative in that. Arthur, do you have anything you want to add?
Oh, yes, in our break room, we just basically all recognize the same thing, that stigmatization and, you know, pinpointing the resources that a person would need in a situation like that.
Yeah, and the challenges of all that. You know, one of the things that they also note that one of the most stressful jobs is working with the public. And there is also the fact that being in a situation, being exposed, as you said, to other people seeing what's going on, and so that the stress of each of them is like playing off of each other.
Mm-hmm. And I've also been in that situation before too.
Yeah.
Got to the counter and my bank card didn't work or something, and I'm just sitting there like, oh.
Yeah, and you're thinking fast like she is. Okay, take this out. Make it stop.
Right.
And Janine. And then Orlando.
So one thing that we noticed, all those things that were said, but also one thing that stuck out was the way that the cashier kind of created that atmosphere of like being critical and being judged. She quickly, you know, just kind of had this attitude, and then the people in line kind of followed that. They picked that up and then just kind of carried it. So it's almost like if her reaction had been a little softer, or maybe just she held a little bit, like maybe the atmosphere around her wouldn't have became that hostile. So that was something that Debbie in our group picked up on, and someone in our group also shared about how they had the similar experience, but with the WIC checks, and how the cashier didn't know what to do with them, and his line was building. So, you know, it was kind of like what she had going on plus what he had going on just wasn't a good situation. So, yeah, that was just some things that came out of our group.
Yeah, and a lot of reasons why people say they, you know, didn't want food stamps. The spectacle at the counter stops people from getting fed because that's so embarrassing. Orlando.
In our group, we pretty much echoed the same sentiment, but we was more silent and humble. First question, Carrie in our group said she's understanding that feeling. The second question around what would be best resources practice to help the mom, Lee in our group said food banks and churches and resources. And Christina summed it up with she might not be aware of those services that was going on. And then to the last question around the cashier experience, Raquel said she might never experience that type of situation. And Sandra summed it up with she might need more proper training to train in these type of situations. And that was our group.
Thank you. Thank you for the comprehensive summary in terms of how much, and it also highlights what Orlando listed and what many of you did, and including Nona in the chat about the clerk being totally out of line. It highlights the importance of community ties, what difference that makes. I remember when I was a direct service provider in the Tenderloin in San Francisco, that some of my clients were lucky enough to go to a grocery store where they would give them credit till the end of the month. And a lot of people in, you know, SROs and in shops and those kinds of environments where they see it to be their mission to care for each other. And that caring, supporting that caring makes a tremendous difference. And it's really key in terms of what we're talking about in terms of culturally affirmative, attending to the ties of the family, the ties of the community, and how that can make everything better for the people that we work for, as well as it does for ourselves in our own lives. Well, thank you very much for that input, and I am returning it back to Rebecca.
Can you tell me, are you seeing presentation mode, or can you see my slides on the left-hand side?
It's presentation mode.
Oh, okay. So we're going to bring back Jaquela to provide an overview of the CalFresh program. Jaquela?
All right. So CalFresh is known federally as a Supplement Nutritional Assistance Program, also known as SNAP. CalFresh provides assistance for households to purchase nutritional foods. The processing time is 30 days, and you can request emergency food stamps, expedited services for the qualifying circumstances. Your household makes less than $150 in monthly income and has $100 or less on hand. Your household's combined monthly income and money on hand are less than your household's combined monthly rent and utilities, or you are a migrant or seasonal farm worker and have less than $100 on hand right now. Next slide, please. There was a new program started that students between 18 and 49 years old who are physically and mentally fit for employment and enrolled at least half time in regular curriculum at an institution for higher education can be eligible to qualify if they meet at least one of the following: work at least 20 hours per week on average, are approved for state or federal work study money and have not refused any job assignments, or have an expected family contribution, EFC, or 0 in the current academic year based on the FAFSA, the free application for federal assistance, federal student aid. You are approved and awarded TANF funded Cal Grant A or Cal Grant B, are a full-time student who is a single parent to a child under 12, a part-time student with a child between the ages of 6 and 11 without adequate childcare, are receiving Calworks benefits, are enrolled in CalFresh employment and training or another job training program accepted by CalFresh, and do not plan to register for the next school term. Next slide, please. To apply for CalFresh, you must provide the following: proof of citizenship. Again, these are the same required documents for Calworks: identification, social security number, proof of income, proof of residency, proof of expenses for the maximum amount benefit. A maximum benefit amount, rent receipt, utility bills, and child care receipts. Awards are determined by household size, income, resources, and assets. Next slide, please. And here is the graph showing the gross income and the maximum benefit for each household. One thing that I learned about CalFresh is we have gotten the biggest benefit during the pandemic. And it's really helped out a lot of families working with Target and other cashier jobs, or just, going to the grocery store on a regular basis. I've seen a lot more people confidently using these EBT cards because they are able to provide a full and healthy meal for their families. Next slide, please. These CalFresh monthly benefits roll over from month to month, so you don't have to stress yourself out about trying to end out your balance before the end of the month. Whatever you have left over will move over to the next month. And new family members or household members can be added to the case. And there is also a program called Market Match at participating farmers markets. So they match you dollar for dollar. It depends on the farmers market and if they participate or not. So for instance, Lake Merritt participates in the market match. So if you spend $30, they will match you $30, and you cash it in and get tokens, and that's how you purchase your produce at farmers market. And also now, people who receive SSI in California, they're also eligible for CalFresh. And in the red, you'll see the changes that were made by Governor Newsom for the months of March 2020 to December 21, increasing the benefit amount to the maximum household. And beginning April 2021, households eligible to receive the maximum allotment will receive an emergency allotment of $95 per month. CalFresh allotments increased by 15% effective January through to September 2021. CalFresh allotments increased permanently by 25% effective October 2021. Next slide, please. CalFresh also started a PEBT program during the shelter in place. And in the top right corner, you'll see the card. If you have family members that have not received their cards, they started sending them out November of 2021. If you have a client that has not received their card, they can access the benefits number on the back of the card, which is 1-877-328-9677, and request a new card. Also remind your clients that they do have 1 year to use those benefits. Unlike the regular CalFresh EBT card, those benefits will not roll over after that year. Next slide, please. These CalFresh benefits are also provided monthly. And if you look at the bottom of the screen on the EBT card, the last number on your for your case is determines the day that you receive your benefits. They distribute the benefits between the 1st and the 10th of every month. And again, it goes on the EBT card, and it does require a semi-annual report and also annual renewal. And then the COVID changes that Governor Newsom made, the redeterminations were suspended for 90 days, but that's no longer effective. Next slide, please. And that is it. I see one question in the chat. It says, Oakland, let's buy you hot food from Denny's, Jack in the Box, and Burger King. So Yes, in order for you to receive, to be able to go into those places and use your EBT card, you have to, when you submit your application, you let your case manager know that you're homeless. And so that lets them know that you're unable to prepare these hot meals, whether it be on a stove or a microwave, and that will allow you to use your card inside Burger King, Denny's, Jack in the Box, and also your case manager can give you a list of participating fast food restaurants.
Do you have to be unsheltered, or could it be that you're in a hotel room with no kitchen facilities?
You could be in the, absolutely, Ms. Valerie, you can be in a hotel with no microwave, no refrigerator or like hot plate. Anything that will prevent you from preparing a hot meal qualifies you to use your EBT card in fast food restaurants.
Okay, thank you.
We also have a question about applying for CalFresh if the family is undocumented. I'm assuming that's the parents or the caregivers, but the children are citizens. Do they qualify? They absolutely qualify. In the CalFresh application, the first part, the first section is for the applicant information, which would be the parents' information. They're the holder of the case in terms of social services, so the case is in their name, but the recipient of the benefit would be the children, as long as the household is meeting all other requirements in terms of income, assets, residency, that they live in the county. So this is also one of those reasons why we really want to hold this training and promote really understanding your family's households, so that you do tap into all the benefits that they qualify for. There is another question.
Yes. The last numbers on the card.
Yes, so there's a set of numbers on the bottom of your EBT card. I believe they're between 9 and 11 digits. The very last number in that set, it lets you know what day you receive your benefits. So if you have a client whose last number is 3, they receive their benefits on the 3rd of every month. And these benefits are distributed between the 1st and 10th of every month, no later.
It is, it's important to always keep CalFresh in your toolbox, because we know so many people actually qualify for the program. And we know that the families are using the program. In our research, we discovered that half of the people that receive CalFresh use all of their benefits by the middle of the month, and 25% of all families use all of their benefits by the first week of the
first week, correct.
So we're a little bit behind. I see. Hi, Letizia. Comment. I have heard that families can receive supplemental security income and CalFresh. Yes, that's true. That's a change that happened, I think, 2020. So let's move on with Medi-Cal. And thank you, Jaquela. Great job. Medi-Cal is known federally as Medicaid. So when you hear in the national news changes or laws coming up around Medicaid, for us in California, it's Medi-Cal. Federal program. This is a federal program that's administered by the state of California and managed by the local county social services departments for most people. Medi-Cal offers free or low-cost health insurance coverage for children and adults with limited income and resources. When we first developed this training several years ago, we worked very closely with social services, and what they really wanted to communicate is that there's multiple entry points to obtain Medi-Cal. There's many, many different types of eligibility for Medi-Cal. So they really take a no wrong door approach to Medi-Cal. They wanted that to be known. Medi-Cal can be issued on an emergency basis for undocumented residents over 26 years old. And there has been a huge expansion of Medi-Cal, which is taking effect May 1st of this year, which is expanding eligibility for full scope Medi-Cal for residents of our state, 50 years or older, under any eligibility group, including Magi and non-Magi, and we'll get into that. And that is regardless of legal status. Now, this is going to have huge implications for our state, and it's actually a wonderful change that the state has implemented. There's two groups that are impacted by this. There are the group of new, what they're calling new enrollee population, and those are our state residents who are 50 or older who are not currently enrolled in Medi-Cal, but will become eligible on May 1st. And there's a second group, which they refer to as the transition population. And those are people who are currently enrolled in restricted scope Medi-Cal, who will then have to transition into full scope Medi-Cal. The implementation is going to be handled by the Department of Healthcare Services at the state level. And here you'll see exactly what the timeline is, how they're going to do that. They're going to try to convert people automatically, but there will have to be manual transitions for those adults that do not transfer over in their automatic transfer. This is a slide. These 3 slides that I've just shared, including this one, were shared with us by our partners at HealthPAC. In terms of impact, we know that this change, the older adult expansion, will move 235,000 people that live in the state of California into full scope Medi-Cal eligibility. What that means for our county is 6,400 residents who either have emergency Medi-Cal and or emergency Medi-Cal or HealthPAC will now be eligible for full scope Medi-Cal. There's also an expansion in terms of Medi-Cal postpartum coverage, and this is coming about as a part of the American Rescue Plan Act under President Biden. Takes effect April 1st, and it's extending postpartum Medi-Cal from 60 days to 12 months. So this is also a massive, massive expansion of Medi-Cal. You can ask for retroactive Medi-Cal coverage, which can be requested for the 3 months prior to the month of application. Under the older adult expansion, full scope retroactive coverage will not be available for older adults moving into the older adult expansion because the coverage, the full scope coverage was not available to them before May 1st. And in that case, they can still apply for retroactive coverage, but it would be on an emergency or restricted scope Medi-Cal coverage. Covered California versus Medi-Cal, what's the difference? Medi-Cal offers low cost or free health coverage to eligible California residents with limited income. Covered California is the state's health insurance marketplace where Californians can shop for health plans and access financial assistance if they qualify for it. So Covered California is California's version of Obamacare, or some people refer to it as ACA, the Affordable Care Act. It's important to note that the plans Covered California and Medi-Cal offer very, very similar sets of coverage, which is referred to as the minimum essential coverage, the MEC. Now, in order to qualify for the modified adjusted gross income Medi-Cal, which is Covered California, eligibility is determined by income, household size, residence, immigration status. A couple of years ago, Medi-Cal had a young adult expansion, which extended Medi-Cal to all children under 19. And then January 1st, 2020, that expanded to cover young adults up to 26. And now we have the older adult expansion covering those over 50. There are multiple coverage groups with income limits that vary based on age and pregnancy status. Some coverage will require premium amount be paid. Now on Medi-Cal, the non-covered California or the non-modified adjusted gross income, what determines eligibility is income, household size, residence, citizenship status, resources, which is property and assets. So currently, an individual has an asset limit of $2,000 in what's called countable resources. A couple has a limit of $3,000. You can have one house and one car. There is a maximum value to the car, which I don't have that figure here, but I think it's something like $7,000. So your car could be worth $7,000 or less, and it's not counted. Now, this is another huge change to Medi-Cal that literally blew my mind when I heard this. in the 2021-2022 budget, there is an elimination of the asset limit for older adults and people with disabilities. And what that means is that the budget has called for the asset test to be eliminated by January 1st, 2024. The first step of that, because they're taking a phased out approach, is that starting this July 1st, 2022, the state is going to raise the asset limit to $130,000 for an individual. So it's going from $2,000 to $130,000. And for each additional family member, it will go up $65,000 from there. Some people with Medi-Cal have what's called a share of cost, or an SOC. Share of cost may apply if you are over the asset or resource limit for full scope Medi-Cal. Share of cost is the amount you're responsible to pay for healthcare before Medi-Cal begins to pay. And it's only applicable in a month that healthcare costs are generated. So if you have a client that has a shared cost, but they're not seeing a doctor, they don't need any tests, they're not going to the emergency room, they don't pay anything. They start to pay in months where they generate medical bills. So it's not applicable in months where there's no healthcare costs. This is what Medi-Cal card looks like. The one on the left is the older card. The one on the right is the newer card. Benefits are active the month of application. This is important to know because if you have a family that's coming to see you on the 21st or the 22nd of the month, you want to get their application for Medi-Cal in that month because the medical coverage will cover the entire month versus waiting to the first week of the following month, which would delay their full coverage, their healthcare coverage. With Medi-Cal, there is an annual renewal required. New family members can be added to a case by completing what's called an add-on package. You don't need to do an entire new packet. Okay, let me stop here and take any questions about Medi-Cal before we move into navigating social services.
There have been some questions, but I think they've also been answered in the chat. So you could.
Okay, we can proceed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you, Valerie. So social services, what happens when you apply for Calworks, CalFresh, GA, or Medi-Cal? Is your initial application is assigned to what's called an Eligibility Services Technician or an EST. The application is assigned a case number. The applicant will receive a letter confirming that the application was received and informing them who is the EST and the contact number and their case number. Most benefit programs do require an interview, which most of the time happens on the phone. After eligibility is determined, the case is routed to the service center where any worker can work on the case. The beneficiary, the recipient, is no longer assigned to an individual worker, except in certain situations. So a few years ago, there was a worker-based system at social services. Now it's task-based. When your clients receive a letter from social services, it's going to look something like this. This is an actual letter from their office. It looks very official. Clients oftentimes will be concerned when they receive this letter, but what's important to point out is that their case information is right here on the right-hand side, the top right, and it's always going to be right here. Their case name and number, the worker name and number, and it's important to help your clients with their mail because there's a lot of people have a strong reaction to mail, and you can see why. This slide has to do with renewing your Medi-Cal, which we will not go over, but you will receive this in your slide deck. So now we wanted to talk about public benefits navigation at the county level. So we really recommend that before you engage social services, that you come with a partnership mentality with your client and in your approach with social services. Each worker at social services before they went to task-based was holding something like 1,400 or 1,500 cases. And this happened when Obamacare came into effect. I don't know if that's still the number, but that's the number that a worker had shared with me when I was pushing really hard to try to get something done. She shared with me what their workload is. And so we really want to be in a partnership mentality with them. You can always verify your client's benefit status using social services automated phone line. This is an extremely helpful line. You can check the status of your application. You can check the size of your household, the day that your benefits are issued, when your redetermination is due. You can also connect with the worker through that line. In terms of Medi-Cal, you can complete an authorized representative form, which is called the MC 306 form, so that you can speak on behalf of your client. Your client doesn't have to be with you or on the phone with you in order for you to access the information if you have this form signed by the client and submitted with social services. When you established communication with the eligibility services technician, ask the worker if it's okay for you to correspond with them via email in the future. Explain clearly what is the reason for your call. Prepare your client for the call. Basically, we want to be sure that we're getting all of the client's needs met and also respecting the time of the people that work at social services and our client. If you're unable to connect with the EST or you're having problems with the EST, ask to speak to the supervising eligibility technician. We also recommend that you accompany your client to social services. I know that the lobbies have been closed due to COVID, but there actually are attending to people at the doorways of their offices. And we've been pretty successful with accompaniment when we go with people. If you're unable to resolve the issue with the EST and the supervising eligibility technician, you can ask to speak to the program manager. Now, during COVID, the office lobbies have been closed, but like I said, you can go to the office. They are attending people in the doorway. Now, in order to contact social services to apply for benefits or report any changes, you can call their number 7:30 to 5, Monday through Friday. You can mail in applications. You can fax applications. You can apply online for all benefit programs, including GA, which is a change at Benefits CalWin. You can apply for CalFresh at Get CalFresh. You can apply for Covered California at coveredcalifornia.com. And if you are with your client and you want to look up something about the client's case, or you need a replacement card, you want to message a worker, I would recommend using their customer automated response system. Here is the link. We've had a lot of success with this system. And here in this slide, we have included the link for the paper applications so that you don't have to go down to the office and pick up applications if your client is going to apply using a paper application. Okay, any questions before we move on to Sheila's presentation?
Rebecca, I just wanted to take a time check that before Sheila, we haven't had our break, the break time.
Okay.
Is that, so then we'll come back in terms of particular questions, and we will be back at 11:07. Okay, everybody, we're going to get started again. And I wanted to, there are some questions in the chat, some of them that have been answered. One around institutional deeming, that the importance of that. The theme of, one of the themes of what Rebecca was discussing is that there's been a great expansion in terms of Medi-Cal in the state of California. You should continue to look for that. And in relation to institutional deeming, it's applying to particularly people with developmental disabilities that they may be living with their parents. Their parents may have a lot of assets that would normally keep them out of Medi-Cal, but they will be assessed for Medi-Cal based on as if they lived in an institution. So it's an opportunity for them to be assessed for Medi-Cal as an individual, not taking into context what the household they're in. There's a lot more to it, but just hopefully it gives you enough so that you can, look into what it means for people with developmental disabilities and other Medi-Cal waiver aspects for that part of our population. So now I will turn it back over to Rebecca, who will be introducing Sheila.
I'm going to introduce Sheila. I see there's a couple of questions in the chat around Medicare, and we're going to get to Medicare at the end of the presentation. It's our last program that we cover, but just so you know, not everybody automatically qualifies for Medicare. It's tied to your work history, and you have to have earned enough work units to qualify for the program. So we'll get into that. Now, without further ado, I would like to present Ms. Sheila Snowden. I first met Sheila, must be 20 years ago, when I was working at the Eastmont Wellness Center, and I had a young lady from New York that I was connecting to victims of crime, and Sheila helped me do that across the country. She is a wonderful, wonderful resource and person, and we're so lucky to have her. Please get your pen and papers out. You will want to take notes during this section. Hi, Sheila.
Hi. Now, how can I follow that intro? Thank you so much, Rebecca. You remember New York. To each of you sharing on this Zoom presentation, I say hello to you. I truly miss that it's not in person because, as Rebecca and the group know, I love to walk around, engage, and get connected to everybody. But I hope that feeling is transmitted even through the electronics here. Again, it's good to see your faces. And just before going forward, I got to give a shout out to each and every one of you, the listening audience, as well as the co-hosts, for all that you do to bring together so many vital services throughout the county, your expertise, your skill, your time, your patience, bringing your A game each and every day. You have no idea how much you matter to the people who really do need us. And truly the pandemic, well resonated that for me, as it may have done in your workplace or work area. But please just take the time. If I was in person, I still got to do it. Give yourself a pat on the back. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. All right. So as we move forward, I will just give you highlights of what I find most important, definitely for you to know. There is so much content with Victims of Crime Program information. And there was a packet distributed, definitely go through it. And as you do so, you find other questions. My contact information is available. And most often from these presentations, I end up making a lot of friends. A lot of people will contact, they know someone who could use our services. And it just really excites me and helps me to know that the information was very impactful, because I see the energy of those who are getting it out into the community, into the area for folk who just didn't know. And that's one of the important goals of this program. Myself, having been here with Victims of Crime Program now entering my 36th year, and I've seen a lot. Different administrations, just you name it. I've seen the ebb and flow, but what I can definitely say, the consistency with this program, I have seen the good of it, and it's a fantastic program. We here for Alameda County Victim Witness, we're based here out of the Office of the District Attorney. Nancy O'Malley, a wonderful and fabulous district attorney, shout out to Miss Nancy, has hosted our contract with the state of California. So we actually partner with the state of California, which administers the Victims of Crime Program in Sacramento. And our goal is to help bring the services here at the county level to assist the state, and in which every state has a Victims of Crime Program, and within it, for us, state of California has local victim witness centers set up throughout each county. We particularly have a lot of offsite locations, and one is here at our main office on Lakeside Drive, 1401 Lakeside Drive in Oakland. Also the Family Justice Center, the East County Hall of Justice, and through other areas, we co-locate and have offices and staff that are available to help provide victims compensation services to the community. You may have heard the term victims of crime in so many other names. It might have been victim witness, victims of crime, victims assistance, Cal VCB, victim services, whatever angle, as long as the word victim was connected to it, we're all one and the same. So it's the same program. And again, many persons still do not know about this program. And in fact, when I started off my years earlier, I didn't know about this program. I didn't know what I was applying for. I saw an opportunity to work claims. My background comes from Social Security as a claims examiner. But this opportunity, wow, was very eye-opening because of the great service the program provides financially for victims. And so the goal is to help get the information out to the community, to everyone at large, that there's a program there to help crime victims so that they don't suffer financially and that they're not having to move forward with trying to heal from a crime and yet have a financial crisis in dealing with the expenses that came along, unfair to them, that, you know, they are faced with. So a little background on the program. It did start back in 1965 under the Welfare and Institutions Code. And the whole goal of the program is to help provide financial assistance to persons who are victims of a violent crime. And so the emphasis being violent because there are crimes, property crimes and the like, but in being a violent crime in particular is the focus in which the program wants to help those persons. So in our attempt to help alleviate their financial aftermath, it is our goal to come in and help to pay certain types of losses that result from being a crime victim. So before I explore that, I want to first explore what it is that the program isn't so that I can take care of some myths that are still floating around. There are persons that are still around that are kind of like putting out some information that's not correct and it's not giving the proper profile to the program. So it's not a rewards program. It's not a program designed that, you know, if you're a crime victim, based upon the severity of your injury, how many bullet wounds a person suffered or stab wounds or anything of that nature, that they are compensated on the basis of their crime or the severity, or to reward them because they've been a crime victim. It's not pain and suffering in terms of, you know, there is a lot of emotional aftermath that a person does suffer, but the program is not designed to provide money as a means of healing. It's not the hookup, as you may have heard some people, you know, call it. It's not a bank. It's not a source of living for their financial day-to-day needs. It's a program designed so that for persons who've been victims of a violent crime and they encounter a huge medical bill, they incur loss of income, they need mental health counseling, they need medical equipment paid, certain losses they can't afford. We are there to help pay for those expenses and to assist them in helping them to heal both emotionally, physically, and financially. So as an example of one of those myths in which a person thought we were paying them as being a victim, years back earlier, when I started, the program used to send the check for which we would consider the compensation check directly to the victim. And what that meant was we as claims specialists would contact the hospitals, we contact the ambulance company, we contact doctors, therapists, different providers who provide a service to the victim to find out how much was that service, what was the expense. And on behalf of that client, we would pay that service provider. And so what we would do is calculate all their losses, get a summary, and let's just say a gunshot victim who went to Highland Hospital and their medical bill was $25,000 and they had physician expenses, pharmacy, medical equipment alike. And let's just say the whole check may have come up to $35,000. So the check was written out to the client. The client would come and pick up the check here from our office, bring ID. And the idea was we give them the list of all the providers for which that check represented, and they were to go cash a check and go pay the providers. They did not. And so that's where a lot of people thought people were getting paid, or that the program was designed to help with pain and suffering and cash them out and the like. So that left the service providers very devastated, and that was unfair to them. They provided services in good faith, they weren't paid, and we couldn't go back and repay them. We couldn't do like, a double claim or anything. So of course it's changed so that now payment goes directly to the service provider and not to the client. But the client does receive a check for any expenses he or she may have paid ahead of filing the claim that we can reimburse as a qualified expense. But that was a pretty challenging period in which people thought they were being paid. And so therefore persons would go out and intentionally get themselves either victimized or inflict injury, just as a means of how much do I get? So that's not how the program ever worked. It's just a payment process that is now changed so that the providers are paid directly. When does a person file? They need to file within 7 years from the incident date. So it used to be 1 year from the incident date. It extended to 3 years. Now it's 7 years from the incident date. And if they happen to miss the 7-year filing period, there is a form that they can fill out. It's in your packet. It's called the late consideration filing form. It allows them to explain why they did not file within 7 years. And it's our goal to evaluate if they have a reason that will help justify them as having a good cause so that we can allow the claim even on a late basis. Where can persons file? They can file at a local victim witness center, such as my office. They can come in person. Our office is open each day for in-person intake. We have an advocate of the day that helps them fill out the application. We provide intake services by phone. Persons can file online, through fax, through email. They can mail in applications. Service providers connected with the Quick Code service can submit applications through that portal. We're just reaching out to make sure that the community knows about this program and that they can get applications through us, through different means. Also with the program, just as some interesting information, California was the first in the nation, of course, to establish the law for a financial program to help victims. But in particular here in Alameda County, we were the first to open up the Victim Services Office back in 1974. So we're now heading into 48 great years of service to the community for which we serve. And so very proud that our office has expanded, we have more staff, and we're able to outreach to the clients at phenomenal levels with a great team of folk here that work with the program. Now, how does the eligibility process go? First of all, it's determined as to whether a person is a victim of a covered crime. Again, violent crime is what we're looking for, in which a person has been injured, threatened with injury, or they're in an environment that's considered threatening or hostile. What it is not based on is a person's financial status or their ability to pay, such as whether they're rich or poor, or their citizenship, if they are an actual California resident, that has no bearing. Whether they have a social security number has no bearing. None of that factors in. If they have been a victim of a crime here in the state of California, in any of the 28 counties here in California, they can apply for victims' compensation services. So with that being in mind, we want to make sure that the county offices, are all set up, outfitted so that people know where to go, how to reach them, and how to get assistance in filing an application, because it's very important that they get an application filed as soon as possible, particularly if they're going through medical treatment that may require, multiple surgeries, or a physician or a dentist or someone who demands, payment up front or immediate payment or some type of service for which they need right away. So our goal is helping to make sure that they understand that it has nothing to do, with their financial backgrounds, residency, citizenship. If they were a victim of a crime in California in which they were injured, threatened with injury, or in an environment that was a hostile, dangerous environment that they could have become a victim, then they do qualify to file with the office. So then upon filing with the office, then we determine their eligibility for services. Persons 18 and older can file their own claim. And under certain cases, minors of age 12 and up can also file their own claim. Those who are in need of immediate medical services, counseling services, those who were victims of some form of sexual assault, and they don't want their parents to know, they can file a claim on their own. Persons who, as a minor victim of a crime, their parent would file, natural biological parent and or a legal guardian for them. For minors who are dependents of the court, it would be the social worker that would file, not the foster parent. The foster parent is who they stay with, but it would be a social worker. For adults who are incapacitated, who do not have their capacity of reasoning, they would have a conservator file for them, or someone who has gained legal guardianship through the court. For victims who are hospitalized and are not able to communicate or having difficulty as a result of their injuries from the crime, any person who obtains medical durable power of attorney can also file on their behalf. So we just need someone who has some type of legal status, if they're not the natural biological parent, in order to be the voice for that person and to assist them in filing their application. For an adult person who, for instance, is hospitalized and they wish to have their mom check on their claim, ask questions, that individual would have to provide a consent that would allow our staff to talk to another adult person, even if it is the mom or the sister or the father. Because that person is an adult, we respect, and confidentiality is widely upheld so that we're not giving out information to a wrong person who's not privileged to know that information. And in that packet does include a copy of a consent form, just for your reference. For those persons who do file an application, they file into a category of either the direct victim, that being the person, the firsthand victim who, as we put it, whose name is on the police report, the person who suffered the injury, the person who was attacked, the person who was robbed, assaulted, the person who was fatally injured, as a result of a homicide or some type of action. So they are the direct victim. And as a result of that individual, persons from the family who are affected by what's happened to that loved one, they can file what's established as a derivative application. They become secondary victims. And so they qualify separately. They file their own application separate from the direct victim, in which to receive services such as counseling to assist them in overcoming the emotional aftermath of what's happened to a loved one. Minor victims who live in a household of domestic violence, they automatically qualify as direct victims. So they are considered victims in their own right because of the environment for which they've lived in that was hostile and difficult for them. Survivor victims, in terms of derivatives in which a parent was fatally injured and the children are survivors to that individual, they are also derivatives. And so family members connected to that individual can also file as a survivor derivative as well. So there are different categories in which different people can file. And our goal is always to put an individual in the highest paying category so that they can receive the maximum amount of benefits. Our program does focus on being the payer of last resort. And what that basically means is, if the Victims of Crime program did not exist, and if I were a crime victim and I've discharged from the hospital, I come home, there's a pile of mail, and already there's a huge medical bill that's met me at the door even before I came home, and I'm overwhelmed. I'm like, how am I going to get this bill paid? By the program being the payer of last resort, it simply means that if I had to pay that bill on my own, what resources would I tap into to try and help avoid coming out of my own pocket to pay that expense? So I would evaluate if I had health insurance. I would evaluate, did my crime occur at work for workers' comp? Did my incident occur in a situation in which there's liability on a part of someone? Did it occur in a vehicle in which there's potential auto insurance? I would look at all types of resources, even if I could perhaps sue the person that injured me. And so with the program taking the position of payer of last resort, it simply means we're going to look at all the different resources that apply that can either reimburse the losses or the person can recover financially, and consider that as being payer source one. And then whatever that source does not cover, we come in to pick up to either pay that expense, the difference of what's not covered through a reimbursement source, or if the reimbursement source does not cover at all, then we pay that expense at our rate of payment according to our payment rules. So we gently guide the clients who do file into understanding that we have to examine what resources may apply. And the goal of utilizing those resources helps to stretch the $70,000 maximum benefit that they have on their claim. So currently our claims max out at $70,000 for a direct victim. And by utilizing other resources, it helps to stretch that benefit so that it's not used up so quickly. With our eligibility process that comes first upon a person filing, we first utilize any form of law enforcement information that gives us information as to what occurred. And what we are trying to screen out is whether the individual contributed to the crime, were they involved in the crime, were they committing a crime themselves, were they breaking the law, were they involved in events that led up to the crime that one would reasonably know could lead to injury and or unfortunately death, by their conduct, actions, and behavior. So those are things that are important for which we need the crime report form. So we know what took place according to the police observation and the facts that they've been able to investigate. And from that, we apply different rules of eligibility to that law enforcement report. Other forms of law enforcement information that we use is also restraining orders. We use traffic reports, we use public housing, police reports, we use school resource officer reports, we use calico reports, we use forensic reports, we use citizen reports. If a victim makes a late report, we utilize that. We utilize FBI reports. We use information from charging DA notes. We use reports from consulates for any crimes that occur out of the state, out of the country for a California citizen. Most recently, the state has started utilizing what's known as a mental health in lieu crime report form, and now allows therapists to verify from their professional expertise and observations of the behavior of a person to verify if they have been a victim of a crime, particularly for the crimes in which clients may not report an incident and do not want to get involved with police, those being victims of human trafficking, sexual assault crimes, domestic violence victims, child abuse cases. We now have a form that allows the therapists to give us information based on their treatment observations to concur if this person was a victim of a crime. So that has helped because it becomes another avenue that enables us to get information to help determine a person as a victim of a crime and their eligibility. So it's not just the standard police report, it's expanded into other forms of what would be considered acceptable law enforcement reporting. Once a person's claim is determined eligible based on filtering out if they were involved, contributed, their contribution to the crime and the like, we then will review their eligibility for payment of their bills. So before the bills are paid, we have to first make sure that they do qualify for the program, and that being that they meet the eligibility rules. Now, if I can touch on this for a minute as it has to do with felons, because that question is on our application in which it asks if an individual is active to felony, probation, or parole from the date of the incident and up until they file the application. And years back, for persons who were felons, this was an issue that's gone back and forth and back. But originally, felons weren't even allowed to file. Then it became an uproar from that community who felt it wasn't fair that they couldn't file. And, you know, the thing about it is they, you know, wear a felon label at that time, but they happened to have been a victim of an innocent crime. So it was accepted that they would be able to file, but their applications would not be reviewed for eligibility until all non-felon applications were reviewed. Well, that meant their claims were never reviewed because you had more non-felons than felons. So it was re-examined again. And so most currently and now, just fast forwarding, persons who are a felon, they're able to file. We look at their eligibility based on the law enforcement report or reporting document that explains what went on. And if they didn't contribute or anything, weren't involved, then their eligibility is clear. However, while they're active to felony, probation, or parole, we cannot pay their expenses. It just simply means they are considered eligible. We zero award them, but their expenses that resulted from the crime are not paid. They're not suspended. They are just not paid, because once they are discharged from felony, probation, or parole status, we do not go back and pay those expenses. It is during the period in which they were active felon to probation or parole, those expenses do not qualify. They, the felons, are individuals who contribute to pay into our restitution fund, which is the source that helps to fund the Victims of Crime program. So we would not allow them to benefit from paying restitution on a violation or a case for which they have been ordered to pay to recover the benefit of getting their benefits paid on the claim. So we will look at their expenses from the date of their discharge going forward. But the expenses during the time of active felon status are not paid, but they are not barred from filing with the program. They're just simply zero awarded. And once they are off that status, we'll look at any continuing expenses they have from that point going forward. And then for those felons who at the time, say, of a homicide, those expenses are paid because someone else now has voluntarily come forward to be responsible to pay funeral and burial expenses. So as not to penalize that person for voluntarily contracting with a funeral home, we will pay those expenses on behalf of a person who died as a felon status as well. Okay, so going forward, the losses for which we do cover, it does include medical, and medical is so widespread. It even includes beyond the hospital, doctor visit, follow-up visit, pharmacy, medical supplies, medical equipment. We have an in-home care benefit that we also provide. We provide assistance for persons who are permanently disabled and need help getting their home remodeled for wheelchair access, ramp installation, expanding the shower just to make their home livable. We provide help if they need to get a vehicle purchased or vehicle modified to be able to drive, go to school, go to work, still, you know, move on with life as they were before the crime. We provide services, you know, with dental, crime scene cleanup, which is now expanded also to a vehicle. If a crime happened in a vehicle and a person, you know, that's where they live, the vehicles now are eligible for crime scene cleanup services, where it's just not a residence or a place, it's now a vehicle. And so we also provide emergency services with the funeral and burial losses in which victims, you might have heard a lot of the homicides here in Alameda County. We provide services that are very swift, in which we are able to get a check payment to the funeral home and service provider within a matter of a couple of days, based on information we get from law enforcement. Also for persons who need to relocate for their personal safety or emotional well-being, we help to get a check payment to the landlord so that they can move into their property and not lose a new place to stay and live and be safe with their family. For persons who are deemed ineligible for the program, there is an appeal process that they can utilize that'll enable them to elevate their concerns and speak further with the state as to why they feel that their claim should be paid. A claim stays open until the person utilizes the $70,000 maximum. They don't have to use all their benefits at one time. We do try to mitigate what's called a partial allow for claimants who claims may not fully qualify, but if there's good reason to help show that we can overcome their involvement or their eligibility issue, we will do our best to mitigate, to at least get part of their expenses paid if we can't get all of their expenses paid. Also, for those persons who fail to cooperate with police, who fail to keep their whereabouts known to us, who fail to utilize a reimbursement source, unfortunately, that can be grounds for a claim to be denied. If a person is a victim multiple times on different dates and in different situations, they can file a claim for each time they are a victim. So they don't have to just file one time and think they can't file again. They're welcome to file as many times. For persons who suffer to be, say, a victim of stalking or harassment, and the same person is continually to bother them, they can continue to expand that claim each time they are victimized by that person or persons that are trying to help intimidate them through the hands of family or friends. If a person does not know who committed the crime, didn't see, or just was hitting on the back of the head and has no idea what happened, they can still file. They do not have to know who committed the crime. But if they do know, they do have to cooperate with police to provide as much information as possible so that the police can find that person, get them off the streets to avoid someone else from being victimized. For our processing period, our goal statutorily, a claim and a bill should be processed within 90 days. However, we are reducing that time as best as possible. I'll give you a few stats on that. The program is doing its best to reduce any and all barriers that hinder a person from filing. And there's been a lot of sweeping changes that have helped persons to have it easier to file a claim as well.
Sheila? We're just at about time, and I want you to know there's a few questions for you in the chat. So I don't know if you,
Okay. Our outreach is very important. We rely on the expertise of law enforcement information we receive. We ask that anyone who is familiar with our program, and if they encounter someone that does need our services, to leave the eligibility to us. Don't try and predict if they think it'll be eligible or not, because that's, scared away some people from even filing, and it doesn't give them a fair chance to actually deal with us and get all the proper information that they need. And most of all, we just want to make sure that everybody knows about the program and it gets a chance to experience the great services we offer. For our 2021 fiscal year, just real quickly, we processed statewide over 42,000 apps, of which 35,000 were allowed, 5,700 were denied, 1,100 were duplicates. Of that 42,000 apps filed, we paid $52,743,000 in benefits. Our average processing time, both to process a claim and a bill, was 39 days, well beneath the 90-day statutory limit.
Excellent.
And I am open for questions.
Okay. Do you want me to read them to you?
Yes.
Okay. So the first question is from Lola, and the question is, does the program help with relocation expenses?
Yes, it does. A person who needs to immediately move for their personal safety or well-being, they're being stalked, or someone's getting out of jail, or someone knows that they were a witness to a crime, or whatever the dynamics are, we can move them as an emergency. This is different from witness protection. So it is the benefit of relocation through the state Victims of Crime program. And if it's not an emergency, we can still process it just as quickly, as need be. But yes, relocation, it allows them to get a letter from their therapist verifying they need to move for emotional well-being, and/or from law enforcement for personal safety reasons.
Okay. Next, we have Herminia Perez, and her question is, hi, I don't know if you mentioned this, but is victims of crime only for US citizens, or can immigrants get the same benefits?
No, it's not for US citizens, as mentioned before. Residency, citizenship has no bearing. If that person was victimized in the state of California, anywhere in the state of California, they qualify to file. They qualify to file. And we would just need some form of law enforcement information, or as I mentioned, the different forms of sources of reporting that we utilize to find out what occurred, the facts. But no social security numbers required to file, no citizenship, no residency. That person being a crime victim and it's been reported in some manner, that's what they need to apply.
Next question is from Vicky, and the question is, if the incident occurs in Los Angeles County and the victim lives in Alameda County, which county do they apply in?
We prefer that they file in the county of jurisdiction where the crime occurred, because the resources of gathering the information through law enforcement, medical providers and all is there. However, we do take what we call out of county claims, because the person lives here. We don't want to inconvenience them by having to contact, Los Angeles, or let's say if it was a victim that was injured out of state and they live here in California, they can not only file in that state, which I want to mention, that's when residency does come into play. If they happen to be victimized out of state or even out of the country, they first file in that area, but they also have the benefit of filing a claim in California as well. So we'll take the claim out of state, out of country, whatever's to the convenience and the best customer service to that client.
Okay, and then Vicky's also sharing that she needs a slide for all your information, but no slide can contain all of the information that Sheila has. And
does she have the handout?
There will be handouts provided for you. Christine is asking for your contact information, which we have at the end of the presentation. And again, this is being recorded, so you will be able to access the recording. Okay. Any other questions before we move on? Well, thank you, Sheila.
Thank you, Sheila. You're very welcome.
That was amazing, as usual.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. We are running about 15 minutes behind, so we do have two options as I understand it. One is that we try to talk really fast and get through it, or that we maybe go past our allotted time by a few minutes. So please, if you could chat in kind of how you're feeling. We do appreciate all of the discussion. We don't want to take away from that at all. We're going to move on now with part 2 of the training, which has to do with benefits administered by the state, by EDD, and also by the Social Security Administration. Can somebody tell me, are you seeing my presenter's view?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have another Zoom poll, which has to do with unemployment insurance. And we're asking if you can rate your satisfaction with engaging unemployment insurance on behalf of your clients. This is kind of how I'm feeling, also having engaged with EDD over the years, and the difference in the satisfaction in the engagement over the last 2 years has been extremely challenging. And we know that from the beginning of the, did everybody see the results? Yes? Thank you. Yeah. We know that EDD has been completely inundated as a result of the pandemic. And one of the first slides showing that, in the last 2 years, 26 million claims have been opened or reopened. And I think that is what explains the dissatisfaction more than anything. So we're going to move on with jumping into unemployment insurance, which is one of 3 programs that EDD administers. Unemployment insurance is a biweekly benefit to workers who have become unemployed due to no fault of their own, or have their work hours reduced due to no fault of their own. Of course, during COVID, there was a special clause that was put in place during the shelter in place, which allowed workers to apply for unemployment if their children's schools were closed and they had no other options for childcare. Unemployment is financed solely by employer-paid taxes. Employers report wage earnings to EDD on a regular basis. Unemployment insurance is a taxed benefit. And so when people are applying for unemployment insurance, there is a question when you certify for benefits. If you want to have federal income tax withheld from your payment, we recommend that people do have their payment deducted, have their taxes deducted at each payment. So clients will receive a form at the end of the year called the 1099-G for their tax reporting purposes. In order to qualify for unemployment, eligibility is determined on meeting a base wage period earnings. You must be physically able and available to go to work. You must be ready and willing to immediately accept work. You must be actively looking for work. You must have citizenship status. If you are not a citizen, you must prove that you are authorized to work in this country by either providing your legal permanent resident card or your employment authorization card issued by the United States Customs and Immigration Service. Of course, we have an asterisk here for being really ready and willing to work and being actively looking for work during COVID. This was not a requirement during the first part of COVID. Unemployment insurance benefits are not automatically issued. Applicants need to certify for benefits. They are asked to do this every 2 weeks. And so this is the questions that are asked when people do certify for benefits. You can certify for benefits online, over the phone, or by mail. This is the first set of questions. This is the second set of questions. Not everybody has to answer this second set of questions. It's only if EDD is asking you to share with them where and how you looked for work. Unemployment insurance claims are effective for 1 year, during which a claimant could receive anywhere between 12 and 26 weeks of full benefits. Now we know that during COVID, because of the CARES Act and the American Rescue Plan Act, that benefits were actually extended for up to 86 weeks for some people between February 2nd and September 4th. The normal unemployment insurance benefit payment is between $40 to a maximum of $450 a week. We know that during COVID, initially there was a $600 additional unemployment insurance benefit that was funded through the CARES Act. And we know that then there was a second supplemental payment of $300, which was effective December 26th through September 4th of last year. Payments for EDD are issued on an electronic EDD debit card. This is what it looks like. If your client was receiving the supplemental pandemic unemployment insurance, this is what it would appear. This is how it would look on their payment details. For this person, their normal weekly benefit amount was $249, but here you can see they had the $600 supplement from the CARES Act, bringing their total benefit amount to $849. Now, navigating EDD during COVID-19 has been a big challenge. You are recommended to file your claim within the first week that you lose your job or that you have your hours reduced. EDD highly encourages people to apply online because that is the fastest way to obtain your benefit. We know that this is extremely challenging, especially with the ID.me platform that EDD is using now. You can also file by phone, by fax, by mail. We have included in your handouts the EDD paper application, which I have resorted to on many occasions because it's just so difficult to get past the ID.me platform. EDD unemployment insurance takes at least 3 weeks. We know that it's taking much longer for a lot of people. If you received EDD benefits on an EDD debit card within the last 3 years, EDD will issue the payment for the new claim on that same card. If your card has expired, or a new card will automatically be sent to you once your funds are available. If you have lost your card or your card was stolen, you cannot find your card, you can contact Bank of America at this phone number and request a replacement card. So how to communicate with EDD? You can ask a question of EDD at this link. If you have an unemployment insurance online account, you can log in and use the Contact Us tab in your portal. You can chat with the virtual agent, the EDD help, when you're on the EDD website. That's more for general questions. And what has been happening is EDD has been communicating with claimants, asking that information be provided to them or that the claimant communicate with them, but there's really been no way for the claimants to get in contact with EDD because the phone lines have been so inundated. So a lot of times EDD will render a decision of denial of a claim because they did not hear from the person. And at that point, you need to appeal within 30 days the decision, explaining that you were trying to connect with EDD and were not able to do so. Now, we do have slides on the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program. We're not going to go through all of the slides because this program ended effective September 4th, 2021. The last day to apply for this program was October 6th, 2021. So some people are still dealing with this because EDD is following up and processing the claims. But for most people, this program has ended. So these slides are just for your reference. Let me take questions here before we jump into state disability. Oh, okay, good. Okay, so I'm seeing a lot of people can stay over. Okay. Okay, perfect. Let's jump into state disability insurance, which is also called SDI. SDI is a worker-funded benefit program for workers that suffer a full or partial loss of wages due to disability that is not work-related. Now, for California, disability is defined as any illness or injury, either physical or mental, that prevents you from doing your regular or customary work. This language is especially important because it's extremely generous, in my opinion. For example, in my case, if I was not able to work as a social worker, which is my regular and customary work, because of an illness or an injury, I could apply and qualify for SDI if I paid into the program within the base wage period, which we'll go over. Now, when we're talking about Social Security Administration, they have a very different definition of disability, and we'll go over that. But for SDI, it's important to remember, if a person is not able to do their regular or customary work, they can apply. Disability includes elective surgery, pregnancy, and childbirth. Here in red, we have the changes to the SDI program during the COVID-19 initial onset, which was that the governor waived the mandatory 7-day waiting period for SDI and the allowance to apply for SDI for COVID-19. With SDI insurance, workers must have paid into the program. SDI uses a base wage period, which is basically, if you went back 18 months from the date of illness or injury, it's the first 12 months of the 18 months. During that time, you must have earned at least $300 in wages in which SDI deductions were withheld from your check. You will see this on your check stub under tax deductions as SDI, or sometimes it'll be CASDI. You must be unable to do your regular customary work for at least 8 consecutive days. That's because there is a 7-day mandatory waiting period. You must be employed or actively looking for work when your disability began. If you're working with someone who is unemployed, but you know that they were working 3 months ago, they qualify for SDI because in theory, they're actively looking for work. They're available for work. So just to put that out there, you must be under the care and treatment of a licensed physician who must certify your application, and you must submit your claim no earlier than 9 days after the first day of disability, but no later than 49 days after your disability began. If you are filing a claim for somebody who is past the 49 days from the onset of disability, I would recommend still submit the application and write a letter as to why you are delayed in submitting the application. Benefits are determined by your wage-based period, and that determination is made on your highest earning quarter within the first 12 months of the last 18 months from the onset of your disability. So as of January 1st of this year, weekly benefit amounts range from $50 to a maximum of $1,540 per week. And these benefits, unlike unemployment insurance, are not subject to tax. Now, you're not eligible for SDI if you're claiming or receiving unemployment or paid family leave, if you become disabled while committing a crime, which results in a felony conviction, if you're receiving workers' comp at a weekly rate that is equal to or greater than the SDI rate, if you're incarcerated because you were convicted of a crime, or if you're living in a substance use residential program that is not both licensed and certified by the state in which the facility is located. EDD applications can be submitted online or by mail. Before COVID, SDI had a really quick processing time from application being received to first payment. Usually was within 14 to 21 days. The families that I'm helping now are having a much longer wait because of COVID. Benefits are issued electronically every 2 weeks using the same EDD debit card as unemployment insurance. And you can receive state disability for up to 52 weeks. Now, to qualify for state disability, you do not need to have legal status. You just have to have paid into the program. And so I have an asterisk here next to male because if you are working with a person who doesn't have a California driver's license or a California ID, or they do not have legal status, submit a paper application. When you're going through the online portal, there are required fields around identification that these people will not be able to meet. And so you will need to do a paper application. The paper application is very easy to do. This is what the application looks like. It's a total of 6 pages. 3 pages for the applicant and 3 pages for the certifying physician or the medical care provider. Now, I wanted to share this story of a gentleman that I knew from a restaurant that I frequented pre-pandemic, who wasn't at work one day, and I had seen a GoFundMe announcement for his healthcare. And one of his coworkers had shared with me that he had fallen ill. I asked them to share my phone number with him, and he contacted me and he told me the story of what had happened to him. So basically, this gentleman woke up one day, had a growth, was dealing with the growth up until the growth became so large that it became painful. He went to the emergency room, at which point he was admitted into the hospital for a week with a discharge and a surgery date scheduled to remove the growth. He had the growth removed, went to follow up with a specialty clinic, was set up and continued his care with a community clinic. So I was talking to him close to 3 months after, 2.5 months after the onset of the growth and the illness. During all of this contact, Mauricio was not connected to state disability insurance. And when I asked him about it, he was under the impression that he had tried to apply, but his employer had not approved his application. When I investigated this with him by asking him to show me how did he apply, we went online. He was not able to successfully set up his online account. And I explained to him that we needed to do a paper application, which we did. And so it was past the 49 days. We were at something like day 50, 52 or 53. We wrote a letter explaining the delay. And Mauricio received this notice. He had been approved for SDI. You can see that he was approved for a weekly benefit amount of $610. And I like to share the story because the total amount of his SDI payments was $7,581.43, which was issued to him. Now you can imagine all of the wonderful people that were helping him in all of these different settings, the emergency room, inpatient, surgery, specialty care, outpatient community clinic, but nobody had connected Mauricio to the money, to his benefit that he had paid into. And so that oversight actually caused him so much stress because, like so many of our families, he was supporting himself here. He's also supporting his family back home in Mexico. So you can just imagine what $7,500 will do for any of us. And so that's why we do this training, is to bring this forward as the importance of knowing the benefits and connecting your families to the benefits. This slide I like to share because not every state has a state disability insurance program. Only 5 states have one, and the territory of Puerto Rico. So we are very, very lucky to live in California. If you have a client that used to live in New York 6 months ago, but now they're living here in California, they become disabled, I would check the New York program because they're probably eligible if they paid into the program to draw down those benefits, even though they live here in California now. There's a question about legal status and state disability. So what happens is, if the person is working under a social security number under which SDI tax was taken out, they can draw down the benefit. And so on the application, the first question is social security number, your social security number. And question number 5, have you ever used any other social security number? So put the number that they're using under question number 5 and write a letter explaining that that's the number they have been working under. If Social Security, if SDI runs the number and sees that there is a conflict with the number because that number is actually assigned to somebody else, they will assign the applicant a special EDD number. So that is true for SDI and also paid family leave. Let's move on with paid family leave. Paid family leave is also administered by EDD. It is also a worker-funded program. It's covered by your SDI tax, and it's for workers suffering. Oh, did I have this wrong? Workers suffering a full or partial loss of wages due to the need to care for a seriously ill family member or to bond with a new child. You must be unable again to do your regular customary work due to the need to provide care. A serious illness is defined as an illness, injury, impairment, or physical or mental condition that requires 1, at-home care or inpatient care at a hospital, hospice, or residential medical facility, and under the continuing treatment of a physician or a healthcare provider. Paid family leave, in terms of paid family leave, they consider family members to be a child, parent, a spouse, a registered domestic partner, a sibling, a grandparent, a grandchild, or a parent-in-law. Claims to bond with the new child must take place within 12 months of the birth, adoption, or the foster care placement of that child. The care recipient must be under the continuing treatment or supervision of a licensed physician who must certify the application. This is really important when you're dealing with SDI and paid family leave, that the physician that is completing the application is registered with the SDI online program. Please, if you're working with doctors, or you're accompanying your families to the doctor and you're completing SDI or paid family leave applications, please ask the doctor, are you registered with the SDI, with the EDD online portal? And the reason why is because if the physician is not registered as a physician with SDI online, they can only submit physically signed applications and certifications for their patients. We have 2 families dealing with this issue right now. And weekly benefits for paid family leave have the same payment range from $50 to a maximum of $1,540. Workers must have paid into the SDI program. They use the same base wage period as state disability insurance. You must submit your claim within 41 days after the first day of your family leave. Again, if you cannot make the 41-day requirement, please write a letter and apply anyway. More than one person can be a caregiver and file for paid family leave. However, you can only receive payments for the days and hours that you are the primary caregiver. Payments begin on the first day of leave, so this is different than SDI. There is no mandatory waiting period. Payments are issued on an EDD debit card, the same as unemployment insurance and SDI. Again, if you are working with somebody that's not have legal status, you're going to want to do a paper application. Has the same processing time as STI, but there are some delays now because of COVID. And unlike SDI, which you can receive up to 1 year or 52 weeks, paid family leave, you can only receive up to 8 weeks in a 12-month period. Okay, any questions? Can somebody tell me if we have questions?
I think she does have her hand up. Thank you.
Yep.
Hi, Vicki.
Thank you. Actually, my hand's been up since SDI, since you were talking about SDI, because my question is back there. Yes. So if a client, let's say a client was had a great job opportunity, they were going to start a job next week, but today they broke their foot. Would they still be qualified for SDI even though they didn't have the job yet?
So remember, SDI determines eligibility by your base wage period. So today is February 2nd. So if we went back 18 months from today, that puts us at what month? That puts us at August 2020. So the base wage period would go August 2020 to August 2021. And within that year, EDD would determine if you have paid enough into the program to draw down the benefit.
Okay, so they should file for it anyway, just to see.
The question would be, can you tell me the last time you worked? And then because you've been to the training and you know the program, that eligibility is not determined by whether or not you're working right now. It's determined by whether or not you worked during the base wage period and paid that $300 that they require.
Okay.
Another question? See, do people qualify for paid family leave if you go out of the country to care for a family member out of the country? So with family leave application, a physician has to certify that the person requires caregiving, and the person that's receiving the care also has to certify that you are providing the care. I have not heard of this being issued out of the country. This is a good question. So I will look into that, and we will, Shakila, if you can leave me your email address, we'll get back to you on that. Okay. So Social Security Administration manages many programs. The programs that we're going to highlight today are the ones that you see in green: Social Security Disability Insurance, Supplemental Security Income, and Medicare. So for SSDI, or Social Security Disability Insurance, this is for people that have been working and paying into the Social Security Administration system, retirement system. So your FICA taxes, this is a wage replacement income benefit for individuals who are under 65, so under the age of retirement for Social Security Administration, who have worked and paid into Social Security with a minimum number of work credits. So what is a work credit? So when you work in this country with a Social Security number, you earn work credits. When you work and pay into your FICA taxes, you can earn a maximum of 4 work credits in 1 calendar year. It doesn't matter how much you work. It doesn't matter if you work 2 jobs. It doesn't matter if you work overtime. The most work credits that you can earn is 1 credit per quarter. So that's 4 credits within a year. Starting in this year, a work credit is earned when you are paid at least $1,510 in wages in a quarter. And it usually requires a 10-year work history if a worker is over 31 years old. If you're under 31 years old and you're working, the work credit requirement is prorated. So we used to see this a lot at Highland, where a lot of young people would be permanently disabled as a result of an injury or a crime. And a lot of people didn't think they qualified for SSDI, but actually they did, because like a lot of us, they started working when they were 14 or 15. and they were on track to have earned the 10-year work history. In order to qualify for SSDI, you must be permanently disabled as defined under the Social Security Act. A person is disabled if they can't work due to a severe medical condition that has lasted or is expected to last at least 1 year or result in death. I put this in here because I think it's important to know that the average monthly SSDI benefit is $1,358 this year, so it's not a lot of money. The maximum benefit that somebody can receive, no matter how much they've paid into the system, is $3,148. SSDI is based on the earning record of the insured worker. Eligibility begins 6 months after Social Security determines the onset of the disability. Benefits continue as long as the individual continues to be disabled. SSA or Social Security Administration will do what's called a disability review every 1 to 7 years. Once the recipient reaches full retirement age, so 65 for some people, 67 for other people, their SSDI will automatically convert to their Social Security retirement benefit. SSDI can be reduced if you're receiving other public benefits. It's important to know that SSDI benefits are payable to the disabled worker, but also possibly to family members that they're supporting. So that includes your spouse. It could include your divorced spouse if you were married at least 10 years. That person is unmarried and at least 62 years old. Children, disabled children, and adult children disabled before the age of 22. There is no income or asset requirement for SSDI because remember this is a work-based program, so it doesn't matter how much money you have in your savings or property, cars, anything like that. Benefits are paid monthly, and after 24 months of receiving SSDI, recipients are eligible for Medicare. So this is important because if you're working with somebody who's 40 years old and they have a Medicare card, they most likely have been on SSDI for the past 24 months. You can apply for SSDI online, in person. I got to put an asterisk there because Social Security offices have been closed for most business since COVID, and on the phone. Payments can be made retroactive up to 12 months. Now, how do you know how many work units you have and what your benefit would look like? If you log on to the Social Security Administration website, you can establish your portal there for your account, which is called My Social Security. It is highly recommended that everybody who's working do this because there's a lot of information in there. What they're going to share with you is how many work credits you have, what your retirement benefit would look like if you continue to work at the rate that you're working, how much money you would get if you were to become disabled, how much money your family and survivors would receive, and Medicare. Okay, I see some questions.
The questions are about the out of the country things that you're going to check on.
Okay, yeah, put your email in the chat, or we can get a response to Leah, and then she can get it to everybody. So now we're going to move on to SSI, or Supplemental Security Income. SSI is a monthly cash payment for people 65 years or older who are in financial need, and for people who are blind and disabled at any age, including children. In order to qualify for SSI, you must be a citizen or a legal permanent resident residing in the U.S. prior to August 22nd, 1996. If you came after that date, you are eligible to apply for CAPI, or Cash Assistance Program for Immigrants. We're not going to go too much into that. It's important to know, though, that one of the requirements for applying to CAPI is that you have applied and been denied for Social Security income. So the starting point is still the SSI application. You must have little or no income and few financial resources. There is no work requirement to apply for SSI, and you must reside in the United States. You cannot leave the country and receive SSI. And when you qualify for SSI, you automatically qualify for Medi-Cal. It is a Medi-Cal that is administered and managed at the state level, though, not at the county level. For Social Security Administration, this is true for SSDI also. A disability is defined as a medical condition that significantly limits your ability to do basic work activities for at least 12 months and or result in death. So what does this mean? Social Security has a listing of diagnoses. They used to call it the Blue Book. I don't know if they still do, but these are medical conditions that are automatic approvals for disability. If your diagnosis is not in the Blue Book, the State Department will make a determination based on the severity of your disability. And you will be asked to provide a lot of information about your condition and your limitations. It could also include a medical exam by one of their physicians. It's a cumbersome process. It can be, and it can take up to 18 months for a lot of people. SSI had a cost of living increase this year. These are the new amounts of SSI. If you're working with clients and they're not sure, do they have SSDI? Do they have SSI? What do they have? You can ask them a few questions and figure it out. One question is, what day do you receive your payment? And the other question is, how much is your payment? I have included in your handouts the schedule of payments from the Social Security Administration for your reference. SSI is meant to be supplement income. Other unearned income is secured first, and then SSI pays up to the allowable limits. Again, right now, it's very difficult to apply at the Social Security office. Some people are being given appointments though, but they want you to start over the phone or online. Benefits begin from the date of application. So even if it takes 18 months, if you're approved, your benefits will be paid retroactively, and they are paid monthly. Now we're going to talk about Medicare, and there were some questions under Medi-Cal about Medicare. Medicare is a worker-based program, so you have to have earned enough work credits to qualify for Medicare. Not everybody gets Medicare. Medicare is in 4 parts. Part A is the inpatient part of Medi-Cal. Part B is the outpatient medical coverage, which includes doctor visits, labs, x-rays, durable medical equipment. Part C is the managed Medicare portion of Medicare. So these are the Medicare Advantage plans. Kaiser has one, HealthNet has one. Part D is the prescription drug coverage. In order to qualify for Medicare, you must be 65 years old or receiving SSDI benefits for 24 months. Medicare has an initial enrollment period for non-SSDI recipients, and that is 3 months before you turn 65 up to 3 months after you turn 65. There is also a general open enrollment period each year in the fall to enroll, make changes, review your coverage. Medicare can have a monthly premium, Part A, and it's dependent on how many work credits you have. If you have paid, if you have less than 30 quarters of work credits, your premium is $499 a month. If you have between 30 and 39 quarters, your premium is $274 a month. If you have worked the 40 quarters or the 10-year, if you have that 10-year work history, there's no cost for Part A. Part B also has a standard premium, which is $170.10. I have a link here also for your reference around Medicare cost. This is what Medicare looks like. The card could be 1 or 2 of these. So now what is Medicare and Medi-Cal? This is what we call Medi-Medi. When somebody says, oh, they have Medi-Medi, what they're saying is they have both Medicare and Medi-Cal. This is for somebody that has had enough work history to qualify for Medicare, but also meets the income and asset limit right now, but the asset limit is going to be eliminated to qualify for Medi-Cal. So in these cases, Medi-Cal is the secondary insurance to Medicare. Medicare is the first insurance, Medi-Cal is the second insurance, and Medi-Cal can pay for Medicare premiums and out-of-pocket healthcare costs that Medicare doesn't cover, which include nursing home facility stays, past the 100-day limit, prescription meds, eyeglasses, hearing aids. And again, if a bill comes to the person's house, you want to first send the Medicare because that's the first payee, and the Medi-Cal if Medicare doesn't cover that. Okay, this is a list of when you might think of bringing making a legal referral to help your client, housing issues, benefit reduction, termination or denials, immigration, issues around violence or safety, clean slate or reentry issues, or consumer issues, medical debt issues. Here we have a list of some of the agencies that we would recommend that you utilize. And we're actually at the end. So, Valerie?
Yeah, so I just wanted to add a couple of things about the SSI, then to open it up for questions and discussion after that. That it's really important to look at your client's work history with SSI and to speak to their difficulties in being able to maintain employment. They have a much stronger, each of us have a much stronger application for SSI if we've actually worked and we had to stop working because we weren't able to maintain it because of some medical or psychiatric condition or combination of both. Could be a variety of different conditions. So to be able to speak to what it is about the workday that didn't work out for them is really, really important. And it can make a tremendous difference. The other is that they typically you have a chance to appeal if your SSI is denied. And then when you make the appeal, about 90% of the appeals are denied too. So don't get discouraged that the appeal was denied. Go the next round, maybe a round after that, and that can make a tremendous difference. Meanwhile, as long as you're doing that in a timely fashion, they will get the money retroactively. The last thing I also want to mention is the example that Rebecca has of Mauricio's story, that many of the peers have also had that similar experience around CalFresh, and just taking the steps to follow closely with your client, what's going on with their services really can result in benefits that they're due, that many people do not see because they do not have providers that help them in the way that we're describing today.
Other questions?
There was a question in the comments, I believe, or maybe just a little bit late to that.
Yeah, Amy, I see your question around Medicare credits for your spouse's work history. I believe that they do. What my recommendation would be is to set up an appointment, phone appointment with Social Security, where they can review your history and your spouse's history. I would also recommend going ahead and creating a My Social Security account. And like I had said, checking it once a year, at least. How can somebody be a client of our services? So our services, Amy?
Yeah, I mean, your Care Connect program, yeah.
Oh, Care Connect has actually officially ended. So we're actually in what they call in the sunset period of Care Connect. But you will see our contact information at the end. Let me put that up if you want to reach out to us. But all of this knowledge literally came from doing exactly what you do every day, and all of you do. It's just connecting the families to the resources and following the application process through with your clients. My training is in medical social work, my formal training, and Valerie was a psychiatric social worker, but it's just in that day-to-day, accompaniment with your clients. And I know so many of you in this room and how wonderful you work with your families. It's just that.
Orlando has a question or comment.
Orlando?
I wanted to say thank y'all for the great work and the great time being on this Zoom, doing this long period and presentation. I just want to say I applaud everyone who stayed on and really taking this knowledge in and really, you know, going to use it and not just have your camera off and just listening to it like it just worked for the day. I wish I really would engage and take it seriously. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Orlando, and thank you to all of our peers that facilitated a breakout room. I really appreciate you and want to recognize you. Any other comments before we sign off?
Oh no, I was just gonna piggyback on what Orlando said. Truly thank you, Rebecca, as always. Thank you everybody that's been in the meeting. Everything that's been shared, I truly thank each and every single one of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, great. Well, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
And thank you, the team, especially Rebecca, Chiquela, Sheila, all the peers in the breakout room. Tremendous amount of work to make sure everything is updated, and did a wonderful job in that, and really appreciate meeting you all through Zoom. Thank you. Bye. Maybe turn on your camera for just a second to wave. Bye.
Thanks
Bye.
so much, everyone. Really appreciate our
Bye.
speakers. Thanks for joining us and staying with
Thank
us to
you.
the end.
Have a good one, everyone.